Dmitri Volkov forced Eleanor Hayes to kneel on the clinic floor as her reading glasses slipped down her nose. To him, Russian mob boss forced a retired nurse to kneel. He didn't know she was a combat medic was the whole story. An old woman in gray, surrounded by armed men, too gentle to protect anyone. Sophia Reyes was pinned against a cabinet. Marcus Bell shook beside an overturned chair. Behind the exam room door, Peter Malkin fought not to cry out. Dmitri crushed Eleanor's medical bag under his shoe. Old women survive by staying useful, he said. Eleanor lowered her eyes, but not in surrender. She watched Mikhail Orlov. His lips were pale, his breathing shallow, and a gray tourniquet strap sat wrong around his upper arm. The hand below it was colder. He was slipping toward collapse, and Dmitri did not know it. Then Anton raised his gun toward Sophia and gave Eleanor 60 seconds to produce Peter. As Mikhail whispered that he could not feel his fingers, Eleanor understood their mistake. They had brought their failing man to the one woman who could read how little time he had. If you enjoy stories where arrogant criminals discover too late that they chose the wrong victim, leave a like, subscribe to Wrong Victim Stories, and tell us what city or state you are watching from. Now let's go back to the moment they made their first mistake. 3 hours earlier, the clinic still belonged to the people it was built to serve. The front room smelled faintly of coffee, rubbing alcohol, and the lemon cleaner Sophia used too generously on the counter. A handwritten sign beside the door said, "Walk-ins welcome until 10," though Eleanor had not turned away anyone at 10 in years. At 67, she moved through the rooms with the unhurried economy of someone who had spent a lifetime learning which motions mattered. She wore a soft gray cardigan over navy scrubs, reading glasses on a chain, and the plain gold wedding ring she had never taken off after her husband, Frank, died. People in the neighborhood called her Mrs. Hayes. They brought her bad coughs, swollen ankles, frightened children, and questions they could not afford to ask anywhere else. She answered what she could, arranged help for what she could not, and never made poverty sound like a personal failure. The clinic occupied the first floor of a narrow brick building outside Pittsburgh. Eleanor lived in the small apartment above it, close enough to hear the old pipes knock when the heat came on. The block had laundromats, repair shops, a bakery that opened before dawn, and 3 generations of families who knew which back door to use when they were embarrassed to be seen asking for help. The clinic was not an emergency department, and Eleanor said so often. But people still came because she was steady, because the lights were on, and because steadiness felt like medicine when money was short. Sophia Reyes sat at the front desk, working through volunteer forms while chewing the cap of a pen. She was 21, studying public health at a community college, and had begun volunteering after Eleanor treated her younger brother's infected hand without asking whether the family had insurance. Sophia's dark hair was tied in a loose knot. She had been brave all evening in the way young people sometimes were when they had not yet decided whether fear counted as weakness. "You missed a signature," Eleanor said. Sophia looked down. "On which page?" "The one under your elbow." Sophia lifted her arm and found the blank line. "You have some kind of supernatural paperwork vision." "No. You always put your elbow over the thing you hope I won't notice." Marcus Bell laughed from the row of plastic chairs. He was 43, broad-shouldered, tired, and wearing a work jacket with the name of a local moving company stitched over the pocket. He had come for a refill packet and a blood pressure check after missing an appointment across town. His left knee bounced whenever he thought no one was watching. Eleanor had already noticed that he kept rubbing the center of his chest, then pretending he was adjusting his jacket. "Don't encourage her," Eleanor told him. "Too late," Marcus said. "She knows everything." "No one knows everything." The words left Eleanor more quietly than she intended. For half a second, the clinic vanished. She saw tan dust hanging over a road, heard metal scream, felt a young soldier's pulse flutter beneath her fingers. Tyler Voss had been 19 and trying to make a joke because everyone else looked afraid. She had known many things that day. She had known who could wait, who could not, who was bleeding faster than he understood. She had saved 4 people. She had not saved Tyler. Then Sophia dropped a stack of forms, and the memory closed. "You okay?" Sophia asked. "Fine." Eleanor bent to help gather the papers. "You finish those, then you go home. You say that every night. And one night you may surprise me." Marcus checked the wall clock. "Bus comes in 20. "You'll have your packet before then," Eleanor said. She was locking the medication cabinet when someone struck the glass front door hard enough to rattle it in the frame. Not knocked. Struck. Sophia froze. A man stood outside with one hand braced against the door. He was in his 50s, thin, neatly dressed beneath a dark overcoat, and bleeding through his shirt near his right side. His face was gray with effort. He looked over his shoulder twice before Eleanor crossed the room. "Mrs. Hayes," Sophia whispered, "we're closed. He's hurt. We should call 911. "We will." The man slapped the glass again. His mouth formed a word Eleanor could not hear. "Please." She unlocked the door but kept the chain in place. "Name?" "Peter," he said through the gap. His accent was slight, his breath uneven. "Peter Malkin. I need help." "What happened?" "I fell." Eleanor looked at the spreading stain beneath his coat. "You did not fall." His eyes moved to the street. "Please." There were no headlights at the corner. No one walking. The bakery across the road had gone dark an hour earlier. Still, Peter watched the empty block as if it had teeth. Eleanor removed the chain. Sophia made a small sound of protest, then hurried around the desk to help. Together they guided Peter into the nearest exam room. He was lighter than Eleanor expected, and much more frightened. His pulse fluttered quickly beneath her fingertips. He tried to keep his coat closed. "Let me see," she said. "I need a place to sit. 10 minutes. You need more than that. No hospital. That is not your decision if you are in immediate danger." His hand shot out and caught her wrist. "No police. No ambulance. They listen." Sophia stepped back. Eleanor did not pull away. "Who listens?" Peter released her. "I made a mistake." People usually say that when they mean they made several. He almost smiled, but pain stopped him. Eleanor opened the coat and examined the wound without theatrics. It was not what he had claimed, and not what a simple accident would leave. The fabric was torn in a narrow line. There was bruising near the ribs and a second mark at the back. Peter had been running after he was injured. The dirt on his trouser cuffs was black and oily, not the red-brown grit from sidewalks near the clinic. "What did you fall on?" Eleanor asked. "A fence." "What kind?" He looked at her. "That answer took too long," she said. Sophia brought clean towels and hovered. Eleanor pointed to the cabinet. "Blue packet, top shelf, and bring the phone." Peter's fear sharpened. "No calls." "We are past asking permission." He grabbed the edge of the exam table. "They will come." "Who?" "The men I worked for." Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Everything okay?" "No," Peter said. Eleanor looked at Marcus. His color was still good, but the bouncing knee had stopped. He had heard enough to understand danger, not enough to know its shape. "Front room," Eleanor told him. "Sit where I can see you." Marcus nodded, but his gaze stayed on Peter. Sophia returned with the phone. Eleanor dialed, and Peter lunged awkwardly from the table. Pain folded him before he took one step. "They will know," he gasped. "They have people. They watch hospitals." Eleanor ended the call before it connected. She did not believe every frightened claim, but she believed the fear. It had the stripped-down quality she remembered from men who had seen the thing chasing them. No exaggeration remained, only calculation. "What did you take?" she asked. Peter's eyes closed. "What did you take?" "A notebook." Sophia stared. "Like a diary?" "No. Names, payments, places." "Criminals?" Marcus asked from the hall. Peter gave a tiny nod. Eleanor felt the night change around them. "Where is it?" she asked. Peter reached inside his coat, then stopped. His expression collapsed. "What?" Eleanor said. "It is not there." Sophia looked toward the front door. Peter searched his pockets with shaking hands. "I had it. I had it when I crossed the alley." "Did you drop it?" "No." He looked around the room, breathing too fast. "I put it somewhere. I thought they were behind me." "Where?" "I don't remember." The clinic suddenly seemed smaller. The locked drug cabinet, supply closet, 2 exam rooms, restroom, front desk, records cabinet, and narrow stairwell to Eleanor's apartment became places to search and places to be trapped. Eleanor put a hand on Peter's shoulder. "Look at me. You are going to slow your breathing. You are going to tell me what happened from the last thing you remember clearly." He tried. Before he could answer, a black SUV rolled past the front windows without slowing. Then it reversed. The brake lights washed the clinic red. Sophia whispered, "Mrs. Hayes." Eleanor was already moving. She dimmed the exam room light, guided Peter toward the back treatment room, and told Marcus to sit down and keep his hands visible if anyone entered. "Are we hiding him?" Sophia asked. "We are buying enough time to understand what we are dealing with." "That's hiding him." "Yes." Eleanor opened a narrow utility door behind the second exam room. It led to an old linen alcove no deeper than a coat closet. Peter stared at it. "I cannot breathe in there." "You can, and you will. Stay quiet. Do not lock it." "What about the notebook?" "We find it after we keep everyone alive." Outside, 3 car doors closed. Then a 4th. Eleanor had just closed the utility door when the front entrance opened. She knew she had locked it. The man who entered held the snapped latch plate in one gloved hand, as if he were returning a borrowed item. He was large, thick through the shoulders, with close-cropped hair and a face tightened by pain. His left sleeve was dark from the elbow down. A gray tourniquet strap circled his upper arm, but it had been twisted and fastened too high. More a desperate gesture than useful care. The hand beneath it hung stiffly at his side. Mikhail Orlov looked first at Eleanor, then at the hallway. Behind him came Anton Belov, leaner, younger, moving with the restless aggression of a man who needed everyone else to know he was dangerous before they had time to doubt it. He carried a handgun low against his thigh. His pupils looked wide under the clinic lights. Sweat shone at his hairline despite the cold outside. The third man entered without hurry. Dmitri Volkov wore a dark wool coat over a tailored suit. He was in his late 40s, clean-shaven, controlled, and polished enough that he might have been mistaken for a businessman, if not for the way the other men adjusted themselves around him. He did not need to raise his voice because he expected silence before speaking. He closed the broken door. "Good evening," he said. No one answered. Dmitri's gaze moved over the clinic. Sophia behind the desk, Marcus in the chair, Eleanor in the hall, the darkened exam room. He absorbed each detail with a calm that looked genuine until Eleanor noticed his right thumb tapping once against his coat seam. Then again, a private clock. "We are looking for a friend," Dmitri said. "Peter Malkin." "I don't discuss patients," Eleanor replied. Anton smiled without humor. "Then you have a patient." "I have a clinic." Mikhail leaned against the wall. The gray strap had left a deep indentation above his elbow. Eleanor saw a tremor run through his fingers. Dmitri followed her gaze. My associate had an accident. So did the door. We will pay for the door. You should sit down, Eleanor told Mikhail. Anton stepped between them. Nobody asked. He may fall. He won't. Mikhail said something in Russian under his breath. Anton snapped back. Eleanor did not understand the words, but she understood hierarchy. Mikhail had asked for help. Anton had told him to endure. Dmitri had allowed both men to speak because their disagreement gave him information. Sophia reached toward the desk phone. Anton raised the gun. Hand away, he said. Sophia obeyed. Her breathing became shallow. Eleanor knew that pattern. The beginning of panic, still reversible if no one fed it. She's a volunteer, Eleanor said. Then she volunteers to listen. Dmitri took 3 steps into the room. Mrs. Hayes, I am told you are kind. This neighborhood appreciates you. People come here because you ask very few questions. I ask the ones that matter. Then ask yourself whether Peter Malkin matters more than these two. He glanced at Sophia and Marcus. Marcus looked toward the broken door. Anton saw it. Don't. Marcus raised both hands. I wasn't doing anything. You were thinking. That's still legal. The room tightened. Eleanor spoke before Anton could. Marcus, sit back. Something in her voice reached him. He did. Dmitri looked at Eleanor with mild interest. They listen to you. People listen when they trust you. Trust. He removed his gloves 1 finger at a time. A luxury. No. Usually the cheapest thing in the room. Anton took a step toward her. Dmitri lifted 2 fingers, and Anton stopped. Not because he agreed, because he had been trained to preserve Dmitri's image of control. Eleanor filed that away. Mikhail shifted against the wall. His jaw clenched. Beneath the injury to his arm, something else was wrong. He favored his left side, guarding the ribs. His breath was too shallow for the arm alone. When he moved, his face tightened a beat later, as if pain rose from deeper inside. The tourniquet was not the cause of everything. It was camouflage for a larger problem, or a clumsy attempt to make one visible injury explain the rest. What happened before you came here? Eleanor asked him. Mikhail looked at Dmitri. Nothing relevant, Dmitri said. The strap is relevant. It stops bleeding. It is hurting him. You will fix it. After I know what else is wrong. Anton laughed. She thinks she's in charge. No, Eleanor said. I think a sick man is getting worse. Dmitri's thumb tapped the seam again. A vehicle passed outside. Everyone except Eleanor looked toward the windows. That told her something else. They were not only hunting Peter. They were expecting pursuit, or feared being seen. Dmitri stepped close enough for Eleanor to smell expensive soap and cold air on his coat. Peter entered this building. You sound sure. I am. Then you don't need me. I prefer cooperation. Men who prefer cooperation usually knock. His eyes cooled. Sophia said, Mrs. Hayes. It was a warning, not a plea. Dmitri smiled at Sophia. She is brave. She is young, Eleanor said. Don't confuse the two. Old people say that when they want youth to be afraid. No, old people say that because we remember how much bravery costs. For the first time, Dmitri's control slipped. Only slightly. His jaw tightened before the smile returned. Anton moved down the hallway and threw open the first exam room. He pulled drawers out, swept supplies to the floor, kicked over a stool. Stop, Sophia said. Anton turned. Eleanor gave Sophia one look. Not silence, not surrender. A request. Stay with me. Sophia swallowed the rest. Dmitri walked to the desk and picked up the volunteer forms. Sophia Reyes, he read, 21, Public Health. Put that down, Eleanor said. Your mentor tells you to be brave. No, Sophia said. She tells me to finish paperwork. Marcus almost laughed, then remembered the gun. Dmitri let the forms fall. Peter took property that does not belong to him. We retrieve it, and no one is harmed. Then why is your man bleeding? Eleanor asked. The question landed. Mikhail looked away. Anton came back from the first exam room. Empty. Search the back, Dmitri said. Eleanor moved into the hall. Anton pointed the gun at her chest. Move. You want your associate treated. I want you out of my way. Those wishes are becoming incompatible. Anton grabbed her upper arm. The old reflex arrived without permission. Eleanor saw the angle of his wrist, the imbalance in his stance, the empty space near his shoulder. Years ago, her body would have turned before thought. Years ago, the world had been noise, dust, blood, and decisions made faster than fear. She did nothing. Not because she could not, because Sophia was 6 feet away. Marcus was trapped near the windows. Peter was behind a thin door. A physical struggle would turn one frightened gunman into 4 moving threats. Eleanor let Anton pull her into the front room. Dmitri watched closely. He had expected resistance. Her restraint confused him. You see, he said, reasonable. Not the word I would use. Anton shoved her. Her knee struck the floor. Sophia gasped. Dmitri looked down at Eleanor. Her reading glasses slid along the chain. The vinyl tile was cold through her slacks. He pointed at the darkened treatment rooms. Where is Peter? I don't know where the man you want is. It was true in the narrowest possible sense. Eleanor knew where Peter had been. She did not know whether he had moved, fainted, or found another hiding place. Dmitri crouched. You are too old to be heroic. I am not trying to be. Good. He stood and placed one polished shoe on Eleanor's medical bag where it lay beside the desk. The bag had belonged to her for 11 years. Its side pocket held bandages, a pen light, spare gloves, and a folded photograph she almost never looked at. Dmitri pressed down. The frame inside cracked. Old women survive by staying useful, he said. Then he crushed the bag flat. Something in Sophia's face broke. You don't have to do that. Anton crossed the room and pinned her against the medicine cabinet with one forearm. Marcus rose. Mikhail pulled his gun with his good hand. Sit, he told Marcus. Marcus sat. Eleanor stayed on one knee. She let Dmitri see the cardigan, the glasses, the silver in her hair. She let him believe age had made obedience out of discipline. Then she looked at Mikhail. His lips had lost more color. The fingers below the gray strap were stiff. Sweat stood on his forehead now, and his breath came with tiny pauses that no one else seemed to hear. How long ago? She asked. Mikhail blinked. What? The injury. Anton tightened his hold on Sophia. She asked where Peter is. Eleanor kept watching Mikhail. How long? 40 minutes, he said. Dmitri turned sharply. 20. Mikhail looked at him. There it was. A lie exposed not by accusation, but by pain. Eleanor nodded toward the strap. Who put that on? No one, Anton said. Someone did. Mikhail's voice dropped. At warehouse. Dmitri said, Enough. Warehouse. Not safe house. Not accident. The gray strap was dusty along one edge and marked with a dark smear that had dried before the newer blood on Mikhail's sleeve. Whatever violence had happened, it had happened earlier than Dmitri wanted anyone to know. Anton raised the gun toward Sophia. 60 seconds. Give us Peter. Sophia's fear reached the edge. Eleanor could see it in the fixed stare, the locked knees, the way her lips parted without sound. "Breathe out longer than you breathe in," Eleanor said. "Don't coach her," Anton snapped. "I am keeping her standing." Mikhail whispered, "My fingers." Eleanor looked at Dmitri. He looked at the wall clock. Then his phone vibrated. He answered in Russian, listened, and for the first time the calm left his eyes completely. When he ended the call, he looked not at Peter's possible hiding places, but at the exits. 30 minutes, he told Anton. "Then we leave." "With the book?" Anton asked. "With the book." "And them?" Dmitri's gaze settled on Eleanor. "That depends on how useful the old woman decides to be." Dmitri gave Eleanor permission to stand as though returning a privilege he owned. She rose slowly, not because her knees hurt, though they did, but because moving too quickly would give Anton a reason to react. Sophia remained against the cabinet. Marcus sat rigid in the chair. Mikhail had lowered his gun, but the muzzle still drifted toward the floor in his good hand. "I need him on an exam table," Eleanor said. "First Peter," Dmitri replied. "Your man may not have 30 minutes. Mikhail looked at him. Dmitri hated that. Eleanor saw it immediately. He did not hate fear itself. He hated fear when it became visible to people below him. "What do you need?" he asked. "Space. My supplies. Sophia." "No. She knows where things are. You know where things are. I also need someone to keep him talking." Anton smirked. "Why?" "Because if he stops answering, I need to know." Mikhail stared at the floor. Dmitri considered. "The girl helps. Marcus stays where he is. You try anything. Anton makes a decision for me." Anton smiled at Sophia. Eleanor did not look at him. "Sophia, blue card, room 2. Sophia moved carefully. The blue card had no special meaning to anyone outside the clinic. To the staff, it meant routine urgent care supplies. But Eleanor and Caleb Rowe, the paramedic supervisor who covered the district, had created a phrase for nights when something felt wrong and a direct call might make things worse. It was not dramatic. No secret code book. Just an odd request placed through a supply line that Caleb knew Eleanor would never make by mistake. The question was how to send it with the phones controlled. Anton followed Sophia into room 2. Eleanor guided Mikhail after them. Dmitri came last. Marcus remained in the front room with the broken door behind him and nowhere safe to go. Mikhail sat on the exam table. The paper beneath him crackled. "Coat off," Eleanor said. "No." "Then I cannot help you." "You look." "I am looking. I need more." He glanced at Dmitri. "Do it," Dmitri said. Mikhail removed the coat with difficulty. Beneath it, his shirt was torn near the left ribs. A broad bruise spread under the fabric. His arm injury was real, but it was not the most dangerous thing Eleanor saw. The more important clues were the shallow breaths, the guarding, the delay between movement and pain, and the strange effort it took him to sit upright. "What struck you?" she asked. "Nothing." "Then you have very unlucky ribs." Anton leaned against the cabinet. "Fix the arm." "The arm is what you can see. That's what is bleeding. Not everything dangerous announces itself." Dmitri stepped closer. "Can he travel?" "Not safely." "That is not an answer." "It is the answer you have." "What happens if we leave?" "I don't know yet." "You were very certain a minute ago." "I was certain he was getting worse. Certainty ends where information ends." That irritated Dmitri more than defiance. He wanted a number, a deadline, a command he could measure himself against. Eleanor put 2 fingers against Mikhail's wrist. His pulse was quick and thready. She watched his face rather than the clock. "How much do you drink?" she asked. Anton laughed. Mikhail said, "What?" "Alcohol. Every day." "No." "Medication." "No." "Anything else?" "No." Each answer came after a glance toward Dmitri. "Do not lie to the person trying to keep you alive," Eleanor said. Mikhail's eyes sharpened. "I am not dying. No one said you were. You did. I said you were getting worse." He looked away. Eleanor loosened the gray strap enough to relieve some pressure without pretending that solved the larger problem. She kept it in place, preserving its position and what clung to it. The strap was commercial emergency equipment, but a shipping stencil had been cut from one end. There were tiny pale fibers caught beneath the buckle, the kind used in heavy packing blankets. Warehouse, vehicle, violent movement. The evidence was speaking quietly. Sophia stood at the blue cart. "Open the lower drawer," Eleanor said. Sophia did. "Check the sterile wraps. They're low." "I know." Anton watched them. "Why ask?" "Because people use supplies." "What else?" "Saline bags, small size." Sophia counted. 4. Eleanor nodded. "Write it down." "Now," Anton asked, "if I do not track inventory, we run out. If we run out, people like him suffer." She nodded toward Mikhail. Dmitri said, "Let her write." Sophia returned to the front desk with Anton behind her. Eleanor had bought 10 seconds of movement. Not enough. She examined Mikhail while Dmitri stood close. "Any dizziness?" "No." "Blurred vision?" "No." "Cold?" "No." Mikhail was shivering. Dmitri's phone vibrated again. He rejected the call. That told Eleanor the person calling held power, but not total control. Dmitri could delay answering once, probably not twice. "Who is your boss afraid of?" she asked. Dmitri smiled. "You assume I have one. Everyone checks the clock for someone." The smile disappeared. Mikhail gave the faintest sound, almost a laugh. Dmitri looked at him. Eleanor had learned something else. Mikhail feared Dmitri, but did not admire him. Anton admired the performance of power. Mikhail only needed it to keep working. From the front room, Sophia called, "Mrs. Hayes, the supply sheet says we're out of pediatric masks." "We aren't." "I know. It was on last week's list." Eleanor understood. Sophia was thinking, testing the routine. "Add them anyway," Eleanor said, "and write. Row shipment, red tags, no substitutions." Silence. Sophia knew that phrase did not belong on the clinic's list. Caleb Rowe handled emergency service coordination, not clinic shipments. Red tags meant a multiple patient emergency in the language he and Eleanor had lived around for years. No substitutions meant the message was deliberate. The problem remained getting the list out. Dmitri heard only inventory. "What is that?" "A supplier note." "You have delivery tonight." "No." "Then why write it?" "Because tomorrow exists." He studied her. She met his gaze with the mild impatience of a nurse asked to explain a pencil. He turned away. In the front room, the clinic's old fax printer made a soft electronic chirp. Anton said, "What was that?" Sophia answered too fast. "Nothing." Eleanor closed her eyes for half a beat. Anton walked toward the sound. "It sends the inventory automatically," Sophia said. "Who to?" "Our supply service." Anton pulled the paper tray out and threw it across the room. "Stop it." "I can't stop something already sent." He grabbed Sophia by the shoulder. Eleanor stepped out of room 2. "Take your hand off her." The room changed. Not because Eleanor shouted. She did not. Because for the first time, Her voice carried command without disguise. Anton heard it. So did Dmitri. Sophia looked at Eleanor, startled. Anton tightened his grip. Or what? Eleanor had no answer she could safely give, so she changed the question. Mikhail, she said, tell Dmitri what just changed. Everyone looked at the exam table. Mikhail was leaning forward, his good hand pressed to his side. His skin had gone damp. His face looked older. What? Dmitri asked. My chest, Mikhail said. Pain? Pressure. Where? Mikhail touched the left side. Dmitri looked at Eleanor. She did not move toward him until Anton released Sophia. Let her go, Dmitri said. Anton did. Eleanor returned to Mikhail. Sophia stayed near the desk, one hand on the counter. Her fingers trembled, but she had sent the message. Maybe. The old machine used a shared line. The broken desk phone had not killed it, but the crew could have interrupted the transmission. Caleb might receive a blank page. He might not be on duty. He might assume the strange wording was a clerical error. Partial answer. Bigger question. Dmitri leaned over Mikhail. Can you hear me? Yes. Good. That is not the standard, Eleanor said. What is? Whether he can continue compensating. Speak English. I am. He stared at her. She turned to Sophia. Bring the small oxygen cylinder. Anton blocked her. No one leaves. It is in the closet across the hall. I get it. You do not know which one. How many are there? 3. Point. Eleanor pointed. Anton went. Sophia remained with her. As soon as he was out of sight, Eleanor said, Sophia, Marcus needs water. Dmitri glanced toward the front room. Marcus was rubbing his chest again. He can wait, Dmitri said. No. You are treating Mikhail. I am responsible for everyone in this building. You are responsible for who I say. Eleanor looked at Marcus. How long has that pressure been there? Marcus tried to smile. I'm fine. That was not the question. On and off. Since when? Dinner. Sophia whispered, You didn't tell us. Didn't want to be dramatic. Eleanor watched his breathing, his color, the way he held himself. The danger was not yet clear, but the complaint mattered. Stress could turn a manageable problem into something else. Now she had 2 deteriorating men, 1 hidden wounded accountant, 1 frightened volunteer, and 3 criminals whose patience depended on a notebook no one could locate. Anton returned with the wrong cylinder. Eleanor corrected him. He hated being corrected. Maybe the old woman should learn gratitude, he said. Maybe you should learn labels. His face reddened. Dmitri stepped between them before Anton could act. Enough. Treat Mikhail. Eleanor did what she could without turning the clinic into a lesson. She watched, listened, reassessed, and refused to promise what she could not know. The important thing was not a procedure. It was time. Every minute Mikhail remained dependent on her was a minute the crew stayed inside. Every minute inside was a chance for Caleb to understand. Every minute also increased the risk to Peter and Marcus. Dmitri checked the wall clock. 22 minutes, he said. To what? Eleanor asked. To your usefulness ending. Then a soft thump came from behind the utility door. Everyone heard it. Anton reached the utility door before Eleanor could stop him. He yanked it open. Peter Malkin had tried to stand. He was wedged between shelves of folded linens, one hand gripping a pipe, the other pressed to his side. For a second, no one moved. Then Anton seized his coat and dragged him into the hall. Sophia cried out. Peter hit one knee, tried to rise, and failed. Dmitri's expression did not change, but his right thumb stopped tapping. The The private clock had found what it wanted. "Peter," he said, "you made us work." Peter looked up at him. "I was always working, Dmitri." Anton struck him across the face. Eleanor moved. Mikhail caught her cardigan with his good hand. It was not a threat. It was fear. "Stay," he said. She looked down at him. "Please." That word cost him more than the pain. Eleanor stayed beside the table, but her voice crossed the room. "He is injured. Another blow could make your problem worse." "My problem?" Dmitri asked. "The notebook." Peter laughed weakly. "He thinks that is the problem." Dmitri crouched in front of him. "Where is it?" "Gone." "You ran here with it." "I ran here without it." "You expect me to believe you lost the only thing keeping you alive?" Peter's eyes moved to Eleanor. That was enough. Dmitri stood. Searched the clinic. Anton opened cabinets, dumped drawers, ripped paper from file boxes. Sophia flinched at every crash. Marcus sat rigid, both hands now pressed to his thighs as though holding himself in place. Dmitri pointed at Peter. "Tie him to the chair." "We do not have rope," Anton said. "You have a belt." Peter was secured to a heavy vinyl chair near the front desk. He winced when Anton pulled his arms back. "Not that position," Eleanor said. Anton ignored her. "His wound is at the side. You are making it worse." "Good." "No," Dmitri said. "Not good." Anton looked at him. "We need him talking." Anton loosened the restraint half an inch. It was the first time Eleanor saw him resent Dmitri openly. Mikhail watched too. The crew was not a single threat. It was 3 different fears forced into the same shape. Dmitri turned to Peter. "Where did you put the notebook?" "I don't remember." "Then remember." "I was bleeding." "You were stealing." "I was surviving." Dmitri picked up Eleanor's shattered medical bag and emptied its contents onto the floor. Bandages rolled beneath chairs. Pens scattered. The cracked photograph frame landed face down. "You came to a nurse," he said. "A predictable choice." Peter stared at Eleanor. "You know her?" Dmitri asked. "No." "You looked at her." "She helped me." "That is not an answer." Peter said nothing. Dmitri nudged the broken frame with his shoe. "People trust women like this. Soft voice, kind eyes. They think kindness is a shield." Eleanor bent to pick up the photograph. Anton stepped on it. Glass cracked again. "Leave it," he said. She looked at his shoe, then at him. The old instinct returned, quiet and exact. She measured distance, weight, balance, the easiest way to make him move. Then Tyler's face crossed her memory. Not as a soldier, as a boy with dust on his eyelashes asking whether the others were all right. Eleanor straightened without touching Anton. "Mrs. Hayes," Sophia said softly, "I am fine." Dmitri studied her. "That picture matters." "No." "Then why reach for it?" "Because broken glass cuts people." He smiled. "Always the nurse." The search spread upstairs. Anton found the stairwell door and looked at Dmitri. "My apartment," Eleanor said. "Then we search it." "There is no one upstairs. People who hide Peter Malkin do not decide what I believe." Anton climbed the stairs. Every footstep above them sounded like an invasion. Eleanor pictured the small kitchen where Frank used to read the newspaper, the bedroom closet with his old winter coat, the cedar box under the bed holding letters she had not opened in 20 years. None of it concerned Dmitri. All of it was vulnerable because he had decided it was. Mikhail shivered harder. "How long since you urinated?" Eleanor asked. He looked confused. "Answer." "Why?" "Because your body keeps records even when you do not." Dmitri turned. What does that mean? It means I need information. Mikhail muttered, before warehouse. How long before? He did not answer. Peter closed his eyes. Eleanor saw a connection pass between them. You were both there, she said. Dmitri stepped closer. Stop asking about the warehouse. Then stop bringing evidence from it into my clinic. His gaze dropped to the gray strap. For the first time, he understood she had been reading more than symptoms. Evidence? He asked. The strap is dirty with material that did not come from this building. The staining is older than the blood on his sleeve. He was hurt before you arrived, and not where you claim. Anton shouted from upstairs, Dmitri! A drawer slammed, then silence. Dmitri looked toward the ceiling. Anton came down holding a small locked metal box. Eleanor's stomach tightened. Found under the bed, he said. That is mine, she replied. That is why it is interesting. Dmitri set it on the desk. Key. No. Anton raised the gun. Dmitri did not look away from Eleanor. Key. She considered the people in the room. Sophia's fear. Marcus's chest pressure. Peter's failing color. Mikhail's dependence. The message that might or might not have reached Caleb. Then she removed a small key from the chain around her neck. Dmitri opened the box. Inside were military discharge papers, a folded flag patch, 2 sets of identification tags, 3 letters tied with faded blue ribbon, a service medal Eleanor had never displayed, and a photograph. Dmitri lifted the photograph. 6 soldiers stood beside an armored vehicle under a hard white sky. 5 were young men. The 6th was Eleanor, decades younger, wearing body armor and a medic patch. Her hair was hidden under a helmet. Her face looked thinner, sharper, and completely awake. Dmitri turned the picture toward her. What is this? My past. Army. Yes. Doctor. Medic. The room went still. Sophia stared at Eleanor. Marcus said, You never told us. There was no need. Peter lifted his head. His eyes narrowed at the name printed on the back of the photograph. Eleanor Hayes, 218th Medical Detachment. Recognition changed his face. Dmitri noticed. What? Peter whispered. I know that name. Eleanor looked at him. From an article, Peter said. Years ago, convoy attack. 4 soldiers brought out alive. Stop, Eleanor said. Peter did not. They wrote that she kept working after. Stop! The word came harder than she intended. Everyone heard the wound inside it. Dmitri looked from the photograph to Eleanor. After what? No one answered. Outside, far across the district, Caleb Rowe stood beside an ambulance bay printer and read a supply request that made no sense. He was 55, broad-faced, gray at the temples, and wore the tired expression of a man who had spent 30 years being called on the worst nights of other people's lives. The clinic's fax came through missing its top margin. Most of the page was ordinary inventory. Then he saw the line. Row shipment. Red tags. No substitutions. Caleb read it twice. Eleanor Hayes did not make mistakes in supply requests. She certainly did not write his name. He called the clinic. The line rang once, clicked, and died. He tried Eleanor's cell. No answer. He looked at the timestamp, then at the address. His partner asked, Problem. Caleb folded the page. Maybe. That look says not maybe. Caleb walked toward the supervisor's desk. Pull the exterior camera feed near Hayes Community Clinic. Quietly. Why quietly? Because Eleanor asked for red tags without asking for help. Back in the clinic, Dmitri held the old photograph close to the light. A combat medic, he said. Former. That changes things. No, it changes what you thought. Anton laughed from the hallway. She is 67. Eleanor looked at him. Yes. You think an old photograph scares me? No. Good. It should not. That answer unsettled him more. Dmitri placed the photograph on the desk. You were trained for war. I was trained to keep people alive. Same business. No. Men with guns, blood, choices. It is the same. No, Eleanor repeated. It is not. He stepped closer. You say that because you lost someone. The room narrowed. Tyler again. The convoy had been moving through a dry valley when the first blast lifted the lead vehicle. After that came noise without sequence. Radio calls, smoke, men shouting names. Eleanor remembered crawling through grit, dragging one wounded soldier behind a wheel, telling another to look at her. Look at her. Keep looking. Tyler had been pinned where the road fell away. He was conscious when she reached him. Did we get them out? He had asked. Most of them. That's not what I asked. You be quiet. He smiled because she had sounded angry. For 23 minutes, Eleanor had done everything experience, training, instinct, and desperate hope could offer. She had known what was happening before Tyler did. She had also known he was watching her face for permission to be afraid. His last words were not about himself. Don't let them see you quit. She had not quit. He had still died. 4 soldiers lived because of decisions Eleanor made that day. For years, she remembered only the 5th. Dmitri watched the memory move behind her eyes. There, he said softly. That is the weak place. Eleanor returned to the clinic. No, she said. That is the place I learned the difference between control and responsibility. Dmitri's phone rang again. This time, he answered. He listened for nearly a minute. His face became still. When the call ended, he spoke to Anton. The notebook is in this building. Peter was tracked to the door. No stops. Peter closed his eyes. Dmitri looked at Sophia. Then we searched differently. He took her by the wrist. Eleanor stepped between them. Dmitri smiled. Now, he said, we find out whether the combat medic still knows how to choose who gets hurt. Dmitri did not drag Sophia far. He did not need to. He moved her to the center of the room where everyone could see the pressure he was applying. Search your memory, he told Peter. Peter strained against the belt around his wrists. I do not know. Dmitri tightened his hand around Sophia's wrist. She winced. Eleanor said, let her go. You have been saying that all night, and you keep needing to hear it. Dmitri looked at her. Tell me where the notebook is. I have never seen it. You know this building. So does Sophia. He smiled. Exactly. Sophia's face had gone pale, but she kept her voice steady. I don't know where it is. Then help us search. Anton opened the records cabinet and began throwing folders onto the floor. Eleanor watched Peter. He was not looking at the cabinet. He was looking at the old blood pressure station beside the front desk, then forcing himself to look away. There, a clue. The station had a wooden base with a hollow lower compartment where the clinic stored outdated forms. Peter might have seen it when he staggered in. He had crossed the front room before entering the exam room. He had been confused, frightened, and trying to hide something small. Eleanor did not look at the station again. Peter, she said, tell me the last clear thing you remember. Dmitri turned. You remember for me. I am helping him. You are helping yourself. Those may be the same thing. Peter closed his eyes. I came through the door, he said. There was a woman at the desk. Sophia, Eleanor said. Then the chair. I sat. You did not sit, Sophia said. You leaned on the counter. Peter frowned. Before the exam room, Eleanor continued. What did you touch? The counter. My coat. The clipboard, Sophia said. You knocked it down. Peter's breathing changed. He remembered. Dmitri saw it too. What? He asked. Nothing, Peter said. Anton crossed to him. Wrong answer. Eleanor stepped forward. If you hit him, you may lose the answer. Anton swung toward her. You keep saying may, maybe, could. You don't know anything. I know you have not stopped sweating since you arrived. His face hardened. I know your hands shake more when Dmitri speaks to Mikhail. I know you are watching the door because you expect someone else. And I know you are afraid that whatever happened at the warehouse will be blamed on you. The silence after that was complete. Anton raised the gun. Dmitri said, Lower it. She is talking. She is observing. She knows. She guesses. Eleanor looked at Dmitri. You do not believe that. His thumb tapped his coat seam once. Mikhail made a low sound. They turned. He had slid sideways on the exam table, unable to keep himself upright. His good hand clutched the paper beneath him. His face was gray. Eleanor moved to him. Dmitri blocked her. Notebook, he said. He is failing. Notebook. You can have an answer or a corpse. Mikhail whispered. Dmitri. The plea stripped rank from the room. Dmitri stepped aside. Eleanor helped Mikhail lie back. She did not dramatize his condition. She did not need to. The crew could see his fear now. You said hospital, Mikhail murmured. I said you need more care than this clinic can safely provide. Can you keep me alive? Eleanor looked at him. She could have lied. People often believe kindness meant reassurance at any cost. I can keep working, she said. I cannot promise the outcome. Mikhail nodded once. He trusted that more than comfort. Dmitri's phone rang. This time, the voice on the other end was loud enough that Eleanor heard anger through the speaker, though not the words. Dmitri turned toward the broken doorway and answered in Russian. The conversation was short. His responses became quieter as the other voice became harsher. When he hung up, Anton asked, What did he say? Dmitri did not answer. Dmitri. He said we leave nothing. Peter went still. Sophia whispered, What does that mean? Anton looked at the clinic around him. Then he smiled. No, Eleanor said. Dmitri met her eyes. The notebook is recovered in 15 minutes, or the building burns. Marcus stood suddenly. His chair scraped backward. Sit down, Anton ordered. Marcus put a hand to his chest. Eleanor saw the change before anyone else did. The color draining from his face, the sweat, the careful stillness of someone afraid movement would make pain worse. Marcus, she said. He tried to answer. No words came. Then his knees buckled. Sophia tore free of Dmitri and caught one shoulder as Marcus fell. Eleanor reached the other side. Together they lowered him to the floor. Anton swore. He is pretending. He is not, Eleanor said. What is wrong? I need space. No more games. Then stop making everything a game. Marcus's eyes were open, frightened, unfocused. Look at me, Eleanor said. He did. Stay with my voice. His breathing came short. He tried to apologize. Do not waste air apologizing. Sophia knelt beside him. What do I do? Stay where he can see you. Dmitri said, We do not have time. Eleanor looked up. You have exactly the time his body gives you. He is not my concern. He becomes your concern if he dies while you hold a clinic at gunpoint. Anton laughed once. You think paperwork scares us? No, I think consequences do. Dmitri looked toward the windows. A faint wash of blue light moved across the far end of the block, then disappeared. Everyone saw it. Anton crossed to the door. Police. No sirens, Dmitri said. Could be ambulance. Eleanor kept her face still. Caleb. Maybe. Outside, 2 blocks away, Caleb Rowe stood beside an ambulance parked behind a closed auto shop. He had confirmed the clinic's exterior camera had gone dark 12 minutes earlier. A traffic camera farther down the street showed a black SUV arriving, 4 men entering, and no one leaving. He had also pulled the dispatch log from an industrial district across town. There had been an unconfirmed report of gunfire near a warehouse 48 minutes before Eleanor's fax. A private security guard had called, then disconnected. No patient had been found when the first patrol passed. Gray strap. Warehouse. Caleb did not know those details yet, but he knew Eleanor. A police lieutenant asked, "Could be a false alarm?" Caleb held up the fax. "She wrote my name. She wrote red tags." Could mean injured people. With Eleanor, it means more than one person is at risk, and she cannot say so directly. How sure? Caleb looked toward the dark clinic, sure enough not to rush the door. The lieutenant nodded. No sirens, no lights near the building. Quiet containment. A negotiator on standby. Fire crew staged out of sight after the phrase "building burns" reached dispatch through another source connected to the warehouse investigation. Caleb wanted to call again. He did not. If Eleanor had chosen a silent message, noise could get someone killed. Inside, Marcus gripped Eleanor's hand. "I don't want to die here," he whispered. "You are not allowed to decide the ending before we finish the scene," she said. His mouth twitched. That's not funny. It was not a joke. She assessed him with the same calm she had used on Mikhail. Different danger, different needs. Same rule. Do not let panic become another injury. Sophia followed every instruction without being asked twice. Dmitri watched them. "You do this easily," he said. "No. It looks easy. That is because you have never learned the difference between calm and ease." His gaze moved to the old military photograph. "What happened to Tyler Voss?" he asked. Eleanor's hands paused. Peter stared at him. "How do you know that name?" Dmitri held up one of the letters from the metal box. Tyler's name was written across the envelope. "Put that down," Eleanor said. "Why?" "Because it is not yours. Neither is the notebook. That is not the same. Everything is the same when someone stronger takes it." Eleanor looked at Marcus, then at Mikhail, then at Sophia. "No," she said. "That is the lie men tell when they need cruelty to sound like a law." Dmitri opened the letter. She stood. The whole room reacted. Anton aimed the gun. Mikhail tried to sit up. Sophia said, "Mrs. Hayes." Eleanor walked toward Dmitri until the gun was less than 3 feet from her. "Put it down," she said. Dmitri read the first line. "Dear Mrs. Hayes, we never met, but my son wrote about you." His eyes lifted. Eleanor did not blink. Dmitri folded the letter. Not from mercy, from discomfort. He had found a boundary he could cross, but crossing it did not make him look powerful. It made him look small in front of his own men. He returned the letter to the box. Anton noticed. So did Eleanor. Dmitri needed control to be witnessed. That need was becoming leverage. 10 minutes, he said. Then he pointed at Sophia. Search the clinic with Anton. Every drawer, every cabinet. If she misses something, Peter pays. Sophia looked at Eleanor. Eleanor looked at the blood pressure station. Then she said, "Do what he says." Sophia understood the words. She did not yet understand the reason. Sophia began with the front desk. Anton stood behind her while she opened every drawer and emptied pens, appointment cards, donated glasses, and bus schedules onto the floor. Eleanor stayed with Marcus. Mikhail lay in room 2, visible through the doorway. Dmitri moved between the two sick men as if deciding which had greater value. Peter remained tied to the chair, watching Sophia. "Next," Anton said. Sophia opened the cabinet beneath the old blood pressure station. Outdated forms filled the upper shelf. Behind them, barely visible, was the corner of a small black notebook. Peter closed his eyes. Sophia's fingers trembled. "What?" Anton asked. "Old intake sheets." "Move them." She pulled out a stack. The notebook shifted. A metal tray crashed in room 2. Mikhail had tried to sit. Anton turned toward the sound. In that second, Sophia pushed the notebook deeper into the hollow base and dropped the forms in front of it. "Nothing," she said. "You sure?" "No." He frowned. "I don't know what you consider something." She showed him the shelf. Anton shoved the cabinet closed. Peter breathed out. Eleanor kept her eyes on Marcus. Brave did not mean unafraid. Sophia's fear showed in every movement. She acted anyway. Dmitri came from room 2. "Mikhail cannot breathe. He needs an emergency department," Eleanor said. "No." "Then call an ambulance." "No police. You keep asking a clinic to be a hospital. You were a combat medic. I was not a miracle then either." Tyler's voice returned. "Don't let them see you quit." For years, Eleanor had thought he meant she should hide grief. Perhaps he meant something simpler. Do not let one death erase every life your hands had saved. Marcus squeezed her fingers. "You still here?" she asked. "Trying." "Keep trying." Anton kicked the cabinet. "Where is it?" "I don't know," Peter said. Anton pressed the gun against Peter's shoulder. Sophia stepped between them. She did not charge or struggle. She simply stood beside Peter and said, "He can't remember because he's hurt." "Move." "No." Her voice broke. She stayed. Eleanor saw the danger. Anton's breathing sped up. Defiance embarrassed him, and embarrassment made him reckless. "Anton," Dmitri warned. Anton grabbed Sophia by the hair. Eleanor rose. Mikhail shouted from the exam room, then gasped. Every head turned except Eleanor's. She watched Anton's attention split. "Let her go," she said. "You do not command me." "No, your fear does." He raised the gun toward her. Dmitri stepped between them. "Enough." Anton looked stunned. Dmitri took the gun. For a second, Anton resisted. Then Mikhail called Dmitri's name, and Anton released Sophia. The hierarchy cracked. Eleanor went to Mikhail. His eyes were unfocused. "Stay with me," she said. "You made no promise." "I still make none." "Then why help?" "Because you are alive." "You don't know what I did." "No." "If you knew." "I would still keep you alive for a courtroom." He almost smiled. "Cruel woman." "Practical." Dmitri stood at the door. "Can he move?" "No." "We leave in 5 minutes." "He may not survive the parking lot." "Then make him." Eleanor looked at the gray strap. "You want to know what controls this room?" she asked. "Time. Not your gun. Not the notebook. You think you own time? No. I think you wasted it." She pointed to the strap. "That came from the warehouse. It carries fibers and old blood from before you entered. It connects Mikhail to whatever happened there. You can burn paper. You cannot erase what came in on his clothes or explain why you refused help while he worsened. You are bluffing. No. You are a nurse. I spent years in emergency rooms. Violence leaves patterns. People bring truth in on their bodies." Anton said, Take it off. Burn it. Eleanor stood between him and the table. No. You said it was wrong. I corrected what was harming him. The rest stays with the patient. Dmitri heard the implication. Professionals would see it. His phone rang. He answered. The voice on the other end shouted loudly enough for everyone to hear the anger. We have a medical delay, Dmitri said. More shouting. No, I control it. He ended the call. Anton stared. You hung up. Before Dmitri answered, the clinic's exterior speaker crackled. Eleanor, this is Caleb. I received your supply request. Medical help is outside. Tell me how many patients need care. Dmitri pointed the gun at Eleanor. Say 1. She looked at Marcus, Mikhail, and Peter. 3, she called. Dmitri struck her with the back of his hand. Her glasses flew off. Sophia screamed. Eleanor caught the exam table and stayed standing. Eleanor, Caleb called. She touched her lip. 3, she repeated. Outside, Caleb turned to the police lieutenant. 3 patients. She was hit after answering. Inside, Anton paced. Burn it now. With us inside, Dmitri asked, we take the book and go. We do not have it. Then Peter dies. Peter said, the notebook has copies. The room went still. Dmitri crossed to him. What? You think I carry the only record? If I disappear, copies go out. To whom? People who know what the names mean. Dmitri grabbed his throat, then released him. More lies, Anton said. Maybe, Peter replied. Can you risk it? Uncertainty weakened Dmitri more than a threat. His boss believed one notebook could end the problem. Now Dmitri did not know. Caleb spoke through the speaker. We can send 1 unarmed medic to the door. No police movement. You choose. No, Anton shouted. Yes, Mikhail said. Dmitri looked at him. I need hospital. You need patience. I have been patient. Dmitri went into the room. We leave together. You leave me if book matters. No. Mikhail looked at Eleanor, then back at Dmitri. You choose you. Anton found a plastic fuel container in the utility closet, kept for the building's generator. Sophia backed away. Put that down, Eleanor said. Anton grinned. Now you sound afraid. I am. The admission stopped him. I am afraid for everyone here. That includes you. He laughed. Fear is information, Eleanor said. Yours is telling you to do something permanent, because motion looks like control. You diagnose me now? No. I think you are about to make a mistake Dmitri cannot hide. Dmitri turned. Put it down. Anton did not. Mikhail called from the exam room. Marcus made a weak sound. Peter pulled against the belt. Sophia stood between Anton and the treatment rooms. The room became the convoy again. Too many lives, too little time, no choice without cost. But Eleanor no longer had to defeat death by controlling everything. She only had to choose the next right thing. Caleb, she called. Dmitri aimed at her. Say nothing. Your man needs help. Marcus needs help. Peter needs help. You can still choose not to make this worse. You speak like I lost. No, like you are almost out of choices. Anton twisted the cap on the container. Sophia took the fire extinguisher from the wall and held it against her chest. What will you do with that? Anton asked. I don't know. Her honesty unsettled him. Sophia, stay still, Eleanor said. Then Mikhail rolled toward the edge of the table. Eleanor caught him, but his weight dragged at her shoulders. Help me. No one moved. Dmitri, if you want him alive, help me. The mob boss lowered his gun. Together they eased Mikhail back. For the first time that night, Dmitri Volkov obeyed Eleanor Hayes. Mikhail opened his eyes. Let medic in. No. Then you choose book. I choose us. No, Mikhail whispered. You choose you. Anton heard it. Peter heard it. Sophia heard it. The last piece of Dmitri's authority did not break with violence. It broke because a dying man said the truth aloud. For one long second, no one spoke. Then Anton shoved the fuel container into the hall. I am done waiting. He reached for the gun Dmitri had taken. That was his mistake, not an attack or a plan. An impatient grab by a man certain everyone would watch the weapon. Eleanor watched the people instead. Sophia held the extinguisher. Marcus was conscious but fading. Peter's chair had shifted near the desk. Mikhail could not sit up. Dmitri's attention split between Anton and the door. Now, Eleanor said. Sophia pulled the fire alarm. A hard bell filled the clinic. Anton flinched and covered one ear. Sophia did not use the extinguisher as a weapon. She stood between the fuel and the treatment rooms. Outside, Caleb heard the alarm. Fire risk confirmed, he told the lieutenant. The speaker crackled. Dmitri, the alarm is active. Fire crews and medical teams are coming forward. Open the door and let the patients out. Anton shouted, No! Dmitri looked through the broken entrance. Red lights reflected at the far intersection. Consequences were moving closer. Peter said, It is over. Dmitri pointed the gun at him. Eleanor stepped into the line of sight. You still have a choice, she said. Move. No. You think your history protects you? No. Then why? She looked at Mikhail and Marcus. Because they are alive. At Sophia. Because she should not have to become hard to survive this. Then Peter. And because witnesses keep evidence alive. Dmitri's hand shook. The bell kept ringing. Anton grabbed the fuel container. Mikhail opened his eyes. Anton, leave it. You are weak. I am hurt. Same thing. No, Mikhail said. Not same. The distinction had finally entered the room. Dmitri lowered the gun a fraction. Caleb, Eleanor called. One medic to the door. You do not decide, Dmitri said. You can. Let them take Mikhail, Marcus, and Peter. And you? I stay until they are out. So do I, Sophia said. No, Eleanor replied. Yes. Sophia was terrified. Tears stood in her eyes. Her hands shook. She stayed. Dmitri understood what he had missed. Gentleness had given them reasons fear could not erase. He unlocked the broken door. Caleb entered alone with empty hands visible. Eleanor. 3 urgent. Mikhail first, Marcus second, Peter third. Gray strap stays with Mikhail. Preserve everything on it. Understood. Dmitri said, You take one. Caleb looked at Mikhail. No, Eleanor said. Marcus moves first while your team brings the stretcher for Mikhail. You change the order, Dmitri said. I change the movement, not the need. Caleb knelt beside Marcus. Anton paced. Too long. This is what time looks like when it saves people, Eleanor said. 2 responders appeared beyond the entrance. Dmitri raised the gun. Everything stopped. Then Mikhail said, Put it down. You work for me. Not if I die for notebook. Anton reached for the fuel again. Sophia lifted the extinguisher toward the spill line beneath the loose cap. Don't. Anton stepped forward. His shoe caught the belt tying Peter to the chair. Peter twisted away. The chair tipped. Anton reached for balance and knocked the container across the floor. It rolled toward the doorway without opening. Caleb pulled Marcus clear. Dmitri turned toward Anton. In that instant, responders moved Peter through the entrance, chair and all. No shots, no charge, just one opening used to remove a patient. Dmitri realized too late that Eleanor had never been waiting for a fight. She had been reducing the number of people he could threaten. Mikhail was next. As the stretcher entered, Anton backed toward the hall. "You planned this," Dmitri told Eleanor. "No. You controlled it." "I kept reassessing." "Same thing." "No." Mikhail was transferred, the gray strap still in place. As he passed Dmitri, he said nothing. That silence humiliated Dmitri more than accusation. Sophia followed the responders. At the threshold, she looked back. "You too." In a moment. Now only Eleanor, Dmitri, Anton, Caleb, and the responders remained inside. The balance had changed. Dmitri looked at the military photograph on the desk. "You were never afraid." "I was afraid from the moment you entered. You hid it." "No, I used it." Officers waited beyond the medical team. Anton whispered, "Back door." Caleb said, "No one needs to run." Dmitri looked at Eleanor. "You saved Mikhail so he can testify." "I saved him because he was alive. And me. If you put the gun down, I will do everything I can to keep you alive too." "You would help me after I made you kneel." "Yes." "Why?" "Because my hands do not belong to your cruelty." The bell stopped. The quiet was enormous. Dmitri set the gun on the floor. Anton stared. "You are surrendering to her." "No," Dmitri said. "To time." Anton ran. He made it 3 steps into the hall before officers stopped him without gunfire. The clinic did not burn. By sunrise, Dmitri and Anton were in custody. Mikhail was in surgery under guard. Marcus received the hospital care fear had convinced him to delay. Peter survived and told investigators where to find the notebook after Sophia said she had left it exactly where he hid it. The notebook came from behind the old forms in the blood pressure station. Its pages held names, payments, safe houses, and locations reaching far beyond Dmitri's crew. Peter's copies existed too. Over the next months, arrests widened and front businesses closed. A frightened accountant, a brave volunteer, a careful paramedic supervisor, and a retired nurse had preserved enough truth for court. The gray strap mattered. Fibers beneath its buckle matched warehouse packing blankets. Older staining in Mikhail's account tied the crew to the earlier violence. Disposable emergency gear became a witness Dmitri carried into the clinic himself. Eleanor visited Marcus 2 days later. "You told me not to decide the ending," he said. "You are still not allowed." Sophia returned before repairs were finished. She swept glass, sorted files, and taped a sign to the door. "We will reopen." Peter sent a note from protective custody. "Thank you for treating me like a patient before deciding what kind of man I was." At night, Eleanor opened the metal box and read Tyler's mother's letter all the way through. It did not blame her. It thanked her for staying with him. Eleanor cried in the apartment above the clinic. The grief did not leave. It changed shape. For years, she believed Tyler's death proved there were limits her hands could never forgive. Now she understood that limits were not failures. The promise had never been to save everyone. The promise was not to quit choosing life because one loss hurt too much. 3 weeks later, the clinic reopened. Sophia sat at the front desk with new volunteer forms. Marcus left a thank you note beside the coffee pot. Caleb replaced the fax machine and claimed the new one was less dramatic. Eleanor bought a new medical bag. Then she returned it. Instead, she took an old field medic pouch from the back of her closet. The canvas was faded, the seams worn, and Tyler Voss's unit patch rested inside. She cleaned it, stocked it with ordinary clinic supplies, and set it beside her chair. Not as a weapon, not as a monument to war, as proof that healing hands could remember pressure without belonging to it. Dmitri forced her to kneel because he saw a retired nurse. By sunrise, he understood that Eleanor Hayes had learned long ago how to keep people alive while dangerous men lost control around her.